All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for joining us on this Aloha Friday. We hope that you are all healthy and well and looking forward to the weekend just as much as we are. My name is Kale Hannes with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and I am pleased to present to you the third installment of what is kind of a 10 to 12 month series celebrating the anniversary of the 10-year anniversary of the Papakilo database. Let's see, I will go ahead and start our presentation. We had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but I think we have moved past that. And let me just adjust this. All right, looks like we are ready to go. So for those of you wondering or who may have joined us a little bit late, we are taking requests that will be handled either in the chat, or I am also following the Facebook feed. So if you folks are tuning in on Facebook, feel free to put your questions over there. I will do my best to get those out to you, get those answers out to you. But we are celebrating 10 years for the Papakilo database, as I mentioned earlier. And through this celebration, we decided to highlight many of the collections that are hosted within the Papakilo database. And today's installment, as well as Mondays, or for the month of May, we are focusing on the Kīpuka database, which is OHA's GIS database. But before we get into that, and before I introduce our guest presenter today, I'm going to give a brief introduction for those of you who may have missed our April segments of the webinar segments, kind of sharing about the Papakilo database. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we'll just jump right into it. Papakilo database is an online resource that is presented by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And we have been working on this database for about the past 12 to 13 years. And how this kind of came about was through our work within the community. OHA focuses on many things, from community engagement to advocacy to research to land management, and so on and so forth. We have many different facets of concentrations or areas of concentrations that we need to focus on. And one of them is called compliance review. Compliance review involves the review of environmental assessments, impact statements, cultural assessments, impact statements, and so on and so forth. So early on when I came aboard OHA, which was back in 2006, we started, they asked me, okay, let's create some sort of database or some sort of resource that allows our staff to not only access these environmental assessments and impact statements, but also perhaps try and tie in other resources that are located within our community. A lot of times our researchers or our staff would have to go to Bishop Museum, they would have to go to the State Archives and Bureau of Conveyance and so on and so forth to just gather as much information as they could. And our idea was to become just a lot more efficient and effective in how we manage our staff and our time. So with that, we started to dream, okay, what would be the best way to create a database? And what did we want in it? So of course, we have those reports, those environmental assessments and impact statements. We also wanted access to digitized historic documents like letters, any kind of journals, Hawaiian language newspapers, and so on and so forth. So the list kind of kept growing on and then we included maps, statistics, mo'olelo, place names, and so on and so forth. And of course, GIS was a part of that. So what did we come up with? On April 4th of 2011, we went public and launched our first not our first, but the online resource known as Papakilo Database. And at that time, we were kind of still in our fledgling state, but the name Papakilo really helped to guide how we dealt with collections, how we build out the functionality of the database. So if effectively, Papakilo is a database of databases that pretty much allows you to search various collections pertaining to historical and culturally significant places, events, times, and documents. And it's made available to not only the use of OHA staff, but to our beneficiaries as well as to the general public itself. So as I mentioned earlier, we this whole process started back in October of 2007, where we did extensive research. We tried to import certain databases. We tried to see how those different databases would play with each other. And then we sent out some tests to some kind of target audiences and got feedback. And finally, we went public with the database on April 4th, 2011. We had a little celebration at the Alamana Hotel where we really honored our partners. The content that is provided within OHA, within the Papakilo database, is really supplied by our connections and our partners throughout the archive community. So we went live with about 13 collections, with maybe about 500,000 records, 7 partnering organizations, and we featured the Hawaiian language newspapers, Mahele records, and genealogical indexes. And 10 years later, those numbers have grown considerably to 70 collections, over 1 million records, and from 7 partnering organizations, we now have 18. So we're very fortunate to have found success and be able to build that relationship within the archive community. As of right now, from the official launch to the 10-year anniversary on April 4th of last month, we've had almost 5.5 million page views, users tuning in from or logging on from all over the world, from, of course, home here in Hawaii to the mainland. We even have people logging in from Europe and Japan and Aotearoa, New Zealand. And what they're doing is they're looking for genealogies, newspapers, Mahele records, and so on and so forth. Any type of information that has to do with Hawaii. So for those of you who may not be as ma'a or may not be familiar with the database, it's located at papakilodatabase.com. Here's the landing page, and you can see that we have there's a lot of information on there, and it can be kind of daunting at sometimes, but we advise you to just jump in. And sometimes the best way to jump in is to go to search by collection. And over here, you'll see a list of our different collections that we have listed within the Papakilo database. And you can kind of click on them. For those that have kind of multiple sub collections, that once you click on it, that list will kind of expand, and you'll be able to see more information about those different sub collections as well. But one of the things that people really enjoy using about Papakilo is the search by location. And what better way to do that is to integrate with OHA's GIS database. We recently did an upgrade to our search by location page, which is another great place to start. And this directly ties into our Kīpuka database, and it's an interactive map that allows people to zoom in, zoom out, select islands, select moku within the islands, select ahupua'a, and really kind of fine tune your searches. And that leads me to our guest presenter today, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're joining us on Facebook, thank you. Let me see, we have somebody tuning in from Puna. And if you folks have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, feel free to put it in the comments or the question and answer or the chat, and I'll do my best to get to them. But to give you a brief introduction about what the Kīpuka database is and who our presenter is today, I will read off this little biography and synopsis for you folks. OHA's Kīpuka database is a geographical information system, or GIS, that utilizes the latest mapping technologies to provide a window into the native Hawaiian land, culture, and history. Kīpuka links historic data sets to geographic locations, reinforcing the concept of information embedded in the aina, or the land, encoded in the wahi noa, or the place name. The foundation of Kīpuka is the traditional land system, or mokupuni, divided into moku, ahupua'a, ili, and kuleana. A sense of place was the foundational aspect of traditional Kanaka Maoli identity. And presenting on that is Zachary Smith from the island of Maui. Zachary works for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as our GIS specialist in research, specifically land, culture, and history. And he operates and focuses on the Kīpuka database and ceded land research and land tenure. Zach has been working on this fantastic resource from as long as I can remember, since its inception. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Zach. Let's see. Zach, you want to try and can you say something?
Yes. Thank you, Colin, for that introduction. And thank you and congratulations on 10 years of Papakilo. My name is Zachary Smith, and I am the Kīpuka database administrator. I started at OHA just after the launch of Papakilo as an intern, and started working to develop this spatial complement to the Papakilo database as far as maintaining these records, but with more of a spatial focus and component to it. And as a result, within a few years, Kīpuka was launched as well and integrated with Papakilo search a few years after that, so that they can kind of speak to each other and can act as complementary resources when investigating some of these records, and for Kīpuka, the land documents and historic site documents. So can you see my screen here? Papakilo. And please let me know if there's any problems. There might be some chickens or children running around, dogs, all that in my home office here. So Kale mentioned this search by location function within Papakilo that ties into how Kīpuka was created as a spatial context to records, these database records. Here we have search by genealogy and also search Mahele records. And the way that Kīpuka is tied into Papakilo is through searching. So we have this checkbox, so you can search through our resources that are on Kīpuka, and I'll go show you how they connect and then get into more of how Kīpuka acts as a standalone part or complement to Papakilo. So I've been working in Molokai recently, so I'm gonna search for a place in Molokai. And it searches, in this one, search by collections, or by Mahele records, I believe. It's showing these land records and as well as what records Kīpuka has. So there's this kind of K branding, and it has historic site name, Ahupua'a, so here is Iloli. And when you click on one of the records from Papakilo, it takes you to the Kīpuka database. So you're going to a new site, and this is what we call one of our details pages. So for the Ahupua'a, there's 2 apana here, and this is the details we have about this section. So it contains the land awards, the place names, historic sites, any maps or documents relating to that land. So for this place, there's boundary certificates. So they basically surveyed the boundaries of the land. Within these detail pages are links as well. So if you're interested in these land award documents for this place, there is only the one land award, but going to it, you can find information about that specific land award, including what documents are related to it. So these very same documents that come up in Papakilo when you're searching specifically for them can kind of be maneuvered through our details pages as well as our main map of Kīpuka. So here we have royal patents within Iloli, 8138. And then here you have the documents as well. So this will open up a scan of that record. So for land award research, which is my focus, this is a tool that I use and as well as Papakilo to look at different versions of these same documents, essentially. There's also a historic sites or cultural sites or place names component that is within these detail pages where they have archaeological information about these sites as well as the place names of them. So these detail pages are a good way to kind of drill into some of the more details about land awards or historic sites or place boundaries. And we also have more of a mapping interface in our main site. So here's our web page, Kīpuka Database, and we have our main web map, which if you click here will open up, as well as some more specific web maps relating to specific issues like burial council, census information, just kind of smaller maps relating to specific issues. But if we do go to the main web map, it'll open this up and you'll be kind of shown a map of the Paiana. And then within our map, we are also able to access those detail pages through either searching. So if I search for Iloli, I will probably bring up that exact same information. And it will zoom into those features. So as you zoomed in, you can kind of see how the different layers are activated. So I'm going to zoom out real quick to a broader view, the island-wide view, and you can see that there's, if you look at the layers, a Ahupua'a layer that turns on. So originally there was a kind of a moku scale, and then you get closer and you can get into the Ahupua'a scale. And then there's also an iwi layer. So these kind of traditional land boundaries as mapped are provided in Kīpuka and also replicated in Papakilo through the location search. So prior to, I think last year, there was no map portion to the searching on Papakilo. So Kīpuka was sort of the complement to that, where they didn't have a way to geographically maneuver through space. Kīpuka was that availability. So in addition to these traditional land boundaries, we also have, when zoomed in closer, oops, pardon me, a few different layers, including our land awards layer, which contains all of the first titles of land as they were awarded out through either the Land Commission or through government grants. or other methods. And we also have these brown features, which are the historic sites, place names, or archaeological sites as reported by the Historic Preservation Division. So for each of these features and layers, there are those detail pages that we found through Papakilo. There's that Land Commission Award, there's that OHAʻ. So either clicking on the map can bring up the details pages, as it is here, or through the search bar, bringing them up and accessing the details. Are there any questions or chat, Kale, to discuss?
None that I can see at the moment.
Very good. Okay, so let us get into some more of these features of Kīpuka. So it can all be a little bit overwhelming at first, or if you don't have a specific target for what you're looking for. But we have the available layers that you can turn on or off. You can symbolize them however you like, and even remove them to see the underlying satellite imagery, a la Google Map or any other kind of web mapping. There's access to like help documentation. So it is sort of a way to get around in Kīpuka. There's a chart, and then you can figure out how about searching or any of the tools available by using this question mark. And you can always reach out to me through the contact if you have any questions. So you'll notice that there are a lot of results for searches. There's that Ahupua'a Moku Ili level. There's the land awards, crown lands or kingdom lands, and then historic sites, place names, as well as TMKs. So there's no address search. You can't search for your address really, but if you're doing, if you're looking at development or have some other related matter to a tax map key parcel, they're searchable as well. And we can even look at some of the details of those TMKs. So zooming in further actually turns on that layer. Once you get close enough scale, the tax map key size parcels are more relevant. So you can actually open up details related to a tax map key parcel, opens in a new tab, and there's your details page. Tells you what location you're in, gives a TMK as well as links to a property report for each county. So it varies between the counties, but they each have their own property report page that shows tax information, sales information, square footage, all that kind of stuff. But also you can see what land awards this TMK was within. In this case, a grant to Charles Bishop. Any place names or historic sites within that tax map key, and then a link to the plat maps for this particular layer shows you, the TMK layer that is, shows you the TMK maps there. So you can actually move around within the details page just as we did before, and maybe open up the full Ahupua'a and see the available data within that, which includes usually, if available, the surveyed boundaries from the Boundary Commission or registered maps that are tied to that location. So I'm gonna search for another place. And again, I'm interested in Molokai right now. So we'll take a look at the details and take a look at some of the historic sites that are part of the Kīpuka database that also have some documents within Papakilo database. So for this Ahupua'a, there are a number of land awards, mapped and unmapped, as well as, again, boundary certificate, but also archaeological sites and place names. So the place names are more of like locations with names that don't have associated information, but the archaeological site information or cultural sites come with the archaeology notes. So if you're interested in what cultural sites are in this area or your area, this has that kind of language from archaeologists where they try to assess the features, right? And then it also has links to the library number for those archaeological reports. So a lot of, I guess, cultural impact assessments, EISs, EAs relate to what cultural sites are there, what the place names are, and what land awards are there, and the land tenure, which is of interest to me. So those two layers, as far as historic sites and land awards, are really the kind of unique portions of Kīpuka that may or may not be in touch with what is available in Papakilo. So it's a good way to have a complementary resource where you can search by location or collection or other methods through Papakilo and access these documents, while also, and then taking a look at Kīpuka to see what is more spatially related. So if you were interested in kind of a space or an area, you can we have tools for measurement, tools for selection. So you can actually select things based on a square and selects all of the features within that area. Or you can even do a kind of buffer. So anything within 1,000 feet of this point brings out all of the TMKs, historic sites, in this case a place name, or land awards of interest within that area. As well as showing the Ahupua'a boundaries as mapped for this web map.
Hey, Zach, we had a couple questions come through. If this is a good time to pause and take care of them.
Yes.
The first question has to do with the TMKs from Helen. Because TMK changes at times, how often do you update them, or do you cite the capture date?
So we've traditionally been doing just annual updates to the TMKs because we do processing. We take the data from the state or the county in this case, and we have processing on it. So rather than pulling their data like on a real-time basis, we take the county data on a yearly basis, run our adjustments to it to fit into our database, and then upload it. But the links to the maps, the links to the property reports are basically live as they're being updated. But we do not cite the year of the TMK, and we do not maintain historic versions of the TMKs. So the way that it's an imperfect way to kind of map our land, parcel based, but within the ability to have TMKs, we have an annual updates on them. That's a good question. They do change, and there should be a better way, but there isn't at this point for mapping those parcels.
Awesome. And yeah. Then, so we had another question. Is there any layer of royal patents? And I would assume in that sense, any layers of land commission awards and so on and so forth.
Yes. So royal patents is a kind of confusing term, I guess, because it covered multiple methods of land dispersal, as well as it was, as a royal patent, it was only in existence through the kingdom time. So what that means is you have land awards that are classified as either grants, government grants, oh, pardon me, I'm all over here, as well as the land commission awards. So if we get closer, that layer will turn on. Maybe one more. And you can see how they're symbolized. So the grants are this lighter yellow color. If you click on one, it'll bring it up and tell you that's the type grant. So the grant could be a royal patent, depending on the time of it. And if the land commission award was issued, that's this darker yellow, a patent can be issued on that award. So that would also could be called a royal patent. So the layer that has that is the land awards. And for this one, for example, this number is right around the time of the overthrow. So it could be a royal patent, or it could just be considered a patent, or it could even be just crossed out. So this one is from 1891. So it is a royal patent. This is a large grant of many lands. Actually, this is an interesting grant. But if you go up, you have all of the grant documents just as in Papakilo. But if you go up a few numbers, then they started be calling them land patents. Or if you even go to like shortly after the overthrow, they literally just crossed out royal and they just called them patent grants. So that is the one method of royal patents, right? So you can find those. That's the government basically selling land out of the government, and then also crown lands. Whereas the land commission awards, such as this one, this is a large award of like to a konehiki of this large amount of land. Also contains a grant on that award. In this case, from 1876, this would also be called a royal patent. I think as those get higher and more closer to the actual time period we're in today, again, this is not a government grant. This is a patent on a land commission award from 1895 that was considered a royal patent, and at that point they crossed out royal and they just called it a patent. So there's two methods of those patents, but they're both covered in the land awards layer. And for each land award, there's a details page showing these records. Very good question. This setup was designed, this details page, especially for land awards, was designed to kind of house all of the land records relating to an award all in one section. So you can kind of get the whole picture while also having that visual or mapping of what you're looking at, right, geographically, as well as the location that it's in and the nearby spatial information, cultural sites, or other land awards. I will note that land commission awards are sometimes what people think of as Kuleana awards. So, for example, these large land commission awards are actually a different type of land commission award to a konehiki that are not Kuleana awards. But for example, if we go back to Oh, yes. So for example, this 2-acre lot, quarter-acre lot would be a Kuleana award. And then if you're talking about, oh, there's the chat. If you're talking about a grant, this one may be a bad example, but we can always just change it. They specifically reserve the rights of the native tenants to claim their land through this land commission process. This one's probably a little later, it doesn't explicitly say that, but within these larger grants and even the Konehiki Awards, the rights of the native tenants are claimed within those documents. So if we go to an earlier grant, there's often language that'll specifically reserve the rights of the native tenants.
Zach, we had another question come in on Facebook. This one is from Brother Vince. He says, does the patent give title to the land?
Yes, okay, good question. So all of these land awards are essentially the very first private title. So whether or not they're patented for the land commission. So if there's a land commission award issued, then there's the right to get a patent at that point. So there can be land commission awards that are not patented, but let's say there is a patent on that land award, and that title goes to whoever it is, whoever's been patented. So that would be saying, okay, this land now belongs to the patentee and is no longer has the government interest in it from the Mahele or the Crown's interest, which was this claim through that as well. So for the grants, they're basically selling, usually selling, but sometimes land exchanges for land out of the prior existing government land or the Crown land, or as they were merged and called public lands. So these are mapping basically the first titles of land. And from where that goes, there's a title chain that kind of moves towards modern day, but these are just the very first patents of land out of government lands. So for a large Konehiki award, even if the Konehiki had given some land up to the government or for the Crown, they still had to commutate that land and to remove the government interest in it. And at that point, they would be issued a patent that free of government interest, although. So, very good question. As far as searching goes, there's kind of hints on how to search. So if you're interested in land awards and you know numbers or names, they'll come up for either the patent, the land commission award, or other named. As for historic sites, searching for a place should bring up the place name, or if you do know the archaeological number, you can actually search for those. There's kind of guides as to how to search for TMK numbers because they're always written in different formats. So a lot of times they'll have parentheses, colons, or just be straight up numbers in a row. That's how we understood that. And then for the locations of places, they'll also come up through automatically for whichever layer, as long as you enter in the terms in the search bar. But then we do have tools to kind of navigate here and there geographically, and then you can click on the map and bring up location information or the details for a place and find all of the associated Ahupua'a, land awards, historic sites, etc. Yeah, we went through the tools and kind of select by locations. The layers pop on and off as you get closer, and this will change the opacity. And you can also create bookmarks in addition to the kind of island-based ones we have. If you're doing research in a specific area and you like to come back here, you can add a bookmark. And it'll persist through your section. So if you come back, you can use your bookmark. There are different base maps and help documentation. So that's really the nuts and bolts of Kīpuka. You can either click on things to find their details, or you can search for things to find the details. And you can kind of use the details to navigate between different places and kind of investigate areas. So again, going back to how Papakilo and Kīpuka are connected, there's ways to search by location that mimic Kīpuka's geographical interface, as well as opportunities to search our database through Kīpuka by collection or by, I think if you search by entities, you can turn on, well, not that one, but if you're looking at Mahele records, you can turn on Kīpuka as part of your search terms as well. And it links right in. So I'll go back to, you find a record that with the Kīpuka highlight, and you can jump right into what information Kīpuka has. So Kīpuka was kind of created in the aftermath, or after the launch of Papakilo, to be a spatial database that coincides with all of these amazing document resources that are available on both Papakilo and Kīpuka, and with a real focus on mapping and geography and spatial relations. So it's been a successful partnership, and we've heard a lot of great things. And if there's any questions or with either using it or future people, you can always reach out again through contact in the help section, or each details page, I think, has links to email us, as well as contact on our homepage.
At this time, if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to put it in the chat on Facebook or in Zoom. I do want to thank Zach for putting together this this presentation and being willing to share the value of Kīpuka. And as the manager of the Papakilo database, it's really been a great partnership. Yes, this presentation is being recorded not only on Facebook, which you can access at a different time, but we are also recording it, and we will be putting these videos up on in Papakilo as well. After this presentation, I would like to kindly request that for those of you who are watching it on Zoom, to fill out the survey so we can kind of see how we did and reevaluate, and perhaps provide for you a better presentation in the future. There is, let me see, Zach, we have another question from Helen. She asks the difference between null and none in the trust land status in Kīpuka. So I guess, what is the difference between those?
Okay, that's a great question. So we get a lot of different purposes for this application, as well as different types of users. So we have internal This is kind of developed to help us with our compliance and our advocacy, as well as provide a public service and a way to get these documents to people. And for someone who is very interested and very savvy in this, they want to know about some of the more backgrounds of our data, essentially. So this is like a database question, right? Is it null? So this says trust land status null versus trust land status, I think she said none. So what that means is we pulled data from TMK from the shapes of the files, as well as the owner information occasionally. And then trust land information is part of that manipulation we do to provide this information as part of Kīpuka. So for any individual tax map key parcel, we also tie in information that that came originally from a state database from the Department of Land and Natural Resources that identified whether land were part of different sections of the Admissions Act. And that relates to OHA as far as, is this trust land? Is this 5B land that is part of how OHA is funded? And it also relates to how our beneficiaries, their unclaimed claims to this trust lands. So that trust land status information came from something called the State Land Inventory Management System, SLIMS. And essentially, if it says that trust land status is none, that indicates that the Department of Land and Natural Resources determined this tax map key parcel to be not part of the trust land. Whereas a null status indicates there's no information on it, or they're not interested in it because it's not state land, right? So they tried to, the SLIMS at one point tried to manage the state's inventory of land by assigning information related to tax map keys as their method. And so for something like DLNR land, the trust land status will exist usually. So state land, they'll have a status of either none or possibly it'll say 5A or 5B related to the Admissions Act, or acquired after statehood. So, and that's the way we can kind of identify if OHA has an interest in whether or not these parcels are relating to our beneficiaries, as well as relating to the organization of OHA. So it's part of our internal workflow to understand the trust land status of all these lands. So that question about when we updating our TMKs is very relevant, because if a TMK changes, then how that relates to the trust land database that we say whether or not it's part of the trust lands. If they change the number, then it's not going to be found in that system. So over time, as TMKs do change, shows the imperfections of that system of understanding state lands, trust lands through TMK parcels. It can get a little complicated, but the state did change over from that SLIMS system to a public land trust information system as part of legislative acts. And that system is their attempt to determine trust land status and also manage the state land inventory. But we're using that information from DLNR to determine if a specific TMK has the specific trust land status. But as far as null versus none, null would indicate that there's no record within the state for that TMK, whereas none would indicate not trust land status? That's a good question.
Thank you again to all of you who have been tuning in. We have a few more minutes left, so if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat on Facebook or the chat within Zoom. We will have a duplicate presentation on Monday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. If you folks want to tune in for that because you're so in love with Kīpuka and Papakilo, you're more than welcome to do that. At the same time, you can forward this information on to anybody else within your networks that you feel that would benefit from taking part of this webinar. These webinars will be available on the OHA website, on the OHA Facebook page, I'm sorry. And we'll also be putting these videos up on Papakilo as well. Last month, you can also view last month's presentation, and that was just of me, of a kind of a general overview of Papakilo Database. And next month, we will be featuring the collections from the Ulu Ulu Digital Moving Archive collection, which is housed out at the West Oahu. And they will be kind of going into depth about not only what they do, but what their collections are and how to use their collections and the value of that it brings. Any other questions?
Thank you, Kale, and thank you everyone who is watching along and for their questions and interest. And again, you can always reach out if you have any questions about how to use Kīpuka. There's contact information, or you can talk to Kale. That's right. And pass it along.
Kīpuka and Papakilo can kind of be daunting at first and intimidating to access, but myself and Zach are readily available via email, and the contact information are on both of the websites. If you particularly have time, we'd appreciate it if you were able to kind of take the survey at the end of this presentation. It would really help us as we not only further refine our own presentations, but help to plan future presentations and kind of see what you folks are interested in and so on and so forth. I will stay on for a little bit longer until maybe a little after 1 if you folks have any questions. Your questions are of course not limited to the time we have here. If you think of something else, feel free to email us at our respective emails, which can be found on either the Kīpuka database website, which is kipukadatabase.com, or you can log on to papakilodatabase.com, and our information is listed over there as well.
I'll put that in the chat as well.
Ah, yes. All right. Well, if that's it, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Aloha Friday and a restful and a relaxing weekend. I know me and Zach are looking forward to that. Feel free to visit our websites and take a spin at that. See, try and do some of your research on there. There are multiple tools that you can use, and both of these websites are really valuable and can help you in a lot of your native research. So like I said, I'll stay on for another maybe 5 or 6 minutes. If you folks have any questions, feel free to put it in either the Facebook chat or the Zoom chat But on behalf of myself, Kale Hannes, and Zach Smith, we want to just say mahalo nui for tuning in, and we look forward to being able to help you as you embark on your research journeys, whether it be in Kīpuka or the Papakilo database.
You call it.
That just about does it for us. Thank you for tuning in to this third segment of Papakilo Database's 10-year anniversary webinar series. We just had a presentation by Zach Smith, our GIS specialist on the Kīpuka database, our geographic information systems database that is the brother or sister to Papakilo, also sponsored by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. If you have any questions, feel free to message us at any time. We hope that you will be able to take the survey at the end, and please have a happy Aloha Friday and a relaxing weekend. We will be doing another presentation on Monday from 6:30 to 7:30. Same presentation. So if you would like to forward this out to any of your friends, or if you would want to tune in again and perhaps have some other questions, we'll be more than happy to have you join us. Thank you very much. Malama pono and aloha.